My fiancée, Ava, slept with 3 strangers at her bachelorette party. In the aftermath of that single night, I didn't confront her, I didn't yell, I didn't demand an explanation. I just vanished. And what unfolded next didn't just chip away at her life. It shattered her perfect world into pieces too small to ever put back together. Our story had started so differently. Ava and I were both 30, but we'd met 6 years earlier, at the tender age of 24, during a mutual friend's birthday party. It was one of those crowded, loud house parties where you can barely hear yourself think, but I remember seeing her with perfect clarity. She was standing across the living room, illuminated by a string of fairy lights, throwing her head back in a laugh so pure and unrestrained that it cut through all the noise. In that exact moment, I was convinced she was the most beautiful woman I had ever laid eyes on. It wasn't just her looks, though she was stunning. It was an energy she had, a vibrant, magnetic pull that made you feel like the center of the universe when she focused on you. You didn't just want to be near her, you felt like you needed to be. Somehow, by the end of the night, we found ourselves alone on the back patio, the distant music a faint pulse behind us. We talked for hours, covering everything from our favorite movies to our deepest dreams for the future. I hung on every word, completely captivated. I was hooked, completely and utterly. A few weeks of hesitant, hopeful texts turned into our first date, and a year later, we were moving in together. Those years were incredible, or at least that's the story I told myself. We built a life, a home. Sure, Ava's social battery was always charged higher than mine. She loved a good party, a night out with her friends that stretched into the early morning. I always figured we were a perfect match in that way. She brought the spontaneous fun, and I was the steady, grounding force that made sure the bills got paid and the fridge was stocked. I thought we balanced each other out. When I got down on one knee last year, in the middle of our favorite hiking spot with the whole valley spread out beneath us, I had zero doubts. This was my forever person. Her answer was a tearful, immediate yes. The months that followed were a whirlwind of happy, stressful planning. We argued playfully over invitation fonts, tasted what felt like 100 different wedding cakes, and had serious, lengthy debates about the strategic importance of an open bar. It felt like we were a team, building the foundation of our future together. But it turns out I was the only one on the construction site. The demolition began with something as simple, as stupid, as a package. It was a total fluke that I was even there to see it. My shift at work ended a few hours early, and I had this great idea to surprise Ava by getting home first and making her favorite pasta for dinner. But when I got to our apartment building, I saw it propped against our door, a small, obnoxious gift bag. It had a glittery, heart-shaped tag attached to the handle with a message scrawled in looping, dramatic handwriting. To the wildest bride-to-be, you deserved every second of it. Love, Zoe. At first, my mind didn't even register the weirdness of it. Zoe was Ava's best friend, her ride or die since their college days. I'd never been her biggest fan. I always thought she was abrasive and theatrical, the kind of person who seemed to feed on drama and chaos. But she made Ava happy, so I tolerated her for Ava's sake. They were the fun duo, a term Ava used with a proud smile. Still, that note felt wrong. There was an unsettling edge to it that pricked at the back of my mind. I picked up the bag, unlocked the door, and set it down on our kitchen counter. I just stood there for what must have been 5 solid minutes. My gut was churning. A voice in my head kept telling me to let it go, that it was probably just some inside joke. But another, louder voice was screaming that something was very, very wrong. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know. This wasn't snooping, I reasoned with myself. It was fact-finding. The package was left out in a public hallway, addressed to the bride-to-be, practically a public announcement. That was an invitation, right? My hands felt unsteady as I reached inside. The first few items were exactly what you'd expect from a bachelorette party. A cheap plastic tiara, a pink sash that said "Bride's Last Ride," and a handful of star-shaped glitter confetti that immediately spilled all over the counter and the floor. I almost sighed in relief, but then my fingers brushed against something soft at the very bottom of the bag. I pulled it out. It was a pair of men's boxer briefs. Not new, not a gag gift in a package, but used. My stomach plunged. An icy cold washed over me as I tried desperately to rationalize it. It has to be a joke, some stupid, tasteless gag gift. It has to be. Then I saw it, tucked into a corner of the bag. A tiny, black flash drive. I don't know what force took over my body in that moment, what dark premonition pushed me forward. Maybe it was the boxers. Maybe it was the smug, triumphant tone of Zoe's note. All I knew was that I had to see what was on that drive. My heart was pounding against my ribs as I walked over to my laptop, plugged it in, and clicked on the single video file. The video flickered to life, and for a second, my panic subsided. It started innocently enough. The footage was shaky, clearly filmed on a phone. Ava and her friends were packed into a booth at a loud, dimly lit club, all of them laughing and raising their glasses to the camera. The person filming zoomed in on Ava. She was already wearing the tiara and sash from the gift bag. She looked impossibly beautiful, as she always did, but there was an unfamiliar, manic glint in her eyes. It wasn't just the happy energy of a bride celebrating with her friends. It was something else, something reckless and unhinged. She was on a completely different level, like she didn't have a single care in the world. The next clip began, and that was the moment my world started to tilt on its axis. The scene had shifted. The camera was now focused on a makeshift stage in what was unmistakably a strip club. My blood ran cold. Ava was up there, grinding on a male stripper, while her friends, including Zoe, hooped and hollered from the sidelines. At first, a desperate part of my brain tried to contain the damage. Okay, Liam, just breathe. It's a bachelorette party. It's tacky. It's not great, but it's not the end of the world. I was trying to convince myself to find any anchor in the storm that was rapidly building inside me. But then the camera followed her as she pulled the stripper off the stage by his hand, giggling like a teenager as she led him toward a dark doorway marked private. I slammed my laptop shut. I couldn't breathe. My heart was a wild drum against my ribs, so loud I could hear it in my ears. No, no, I whispered to the empty room. This was not happening. I forced myself to breathe. Don't overreact, I told myself, the words feeling hollow and stupid. Maybe it was just for show. Maybe she went in there, had a nervous laugh, and walked right back out. But I knew better. Deep down, in that place that never lies to you, I already knew. The knot in my stomach tightened into a ball of ice. With a trembling hand, I opened the laptop again and pressed play. The next clip erased every last shred of doubt, every desperate hope I had clung to. The scene had changed again. Ava was now in what looked like an upscale hotel lounge, nestled on a plush sofa, but she wasn't with her friends anymore. She was surrounded by 3 guys I'd never seen before. They were all laughing and drinking, and the flirting was so blatant it felt like a performance. It didn't stop there. One of the men, handsome in a generic, arrogant way, leaned in and kissed her. And Ava didn't just let him, she kissed him back, her hands moving up to his neck. Then, as if this were some sort of party game, another guy joined in. The camera zoomed in, shaky and unsteady, capturing the whole grotesque scene. By the end of the short clip, she was getting up, a triumphant smile on her face, and leading all 3 of them out of the lounge and down a hallway, presumably toward a hotel room. As the screen went black, Zoe's voice, sharp and giddy from behind the camera, provided the final gut-wrenching narration. "Ava, you are an absolute legend! Bride of the year!" I just sat there, staring at my own reflection in the dark screen. The feeling in my chest wasn't sadness. It was a violent, physical tearing, like my ribs had been cracked open and my heart torn out. This person in the video, this wasn't my Ava. This wasn't the woman who would curl up against my chest on lazy Sundays while we watched stupid romantic comedies. This wasn't the woman who spoke with such genuine excitement about starting a family together, about what our kids would look like. The woman I loved was gone, replaced by a stranger who looked just like her. A few hours later, Ava walked through the door, humming a cheerful tune. She dropped her keys in the bowl by the entrance, kissed me on the cheek, and asked about my day as if nothing was wrong. She launched into a story about how Zoe had the most brilliant ideas for the wedding decorations, something about fairy lights and wildflowers. I just nodded. I even managed to smile. Inside, I felt nothing. The connection was severed. I was completely and utterly done. I couldn't even look at her without seeing the ghost of that video playing behind my eyes. The stripper, the three men, Zoe's gleeful voice. I felt like such a fool. Had I been this blind for 6 years? Were there other signs that I had just brushed aside, too in love to see the truth? Or was this a new development, a monster that had been unleashed on this one night? I didn't know the answer. And the most terrifying part was, I didn't even care. The woman I had planned to marry simply didn't exist. Maybe she never had. That night, I didn't sleep a single second. I lay awake in our bed, staring at the shadows on the ceiling while the video played on a torturous loop in my mind. Every laugh, every kiss, every casual touch from a stranger's hand on her body felt like a fresh stab wound. A part of me wanted to shake her awake, to scream in her face and demand answers. But what good would it do? Nothing she could say would erase what I had seen. The trust wasn't just broken, it was annihilated. The next morning, Ava woke up early, bustling around to get ready for work. Before she left, she leaned over the bed, kissed me gently on the forehead, and whispered, "I can't wait to see you tonight, babe." I looked up at her, my face a perfect mask of normalcy. "Me too," I said, and the lie tasted like poison in my mouth. The second I heard the front door click shut, I was out of bed. There was no hesitation, no second guessing. It was like my body was running on pure instinctual autopilot. I pulled my largest duffel bag from the back of the closet and started throwing things into it. A week's worth of clothes, my toiletries, my laptop and all its chargers, my passport, anything that was mine and mine alone. I wasn't just leaving for a night or two. I was leaving for good. I didn't waste a single moment trying to decide what to take. Let her have the couch we picked out together, the fancy television, the espresso machine she loved so much. All of it was tainted now. She can have it all. I just want it out. As I zipped the bulging duffel bag shut, a strange thought cut through the fog of my anger. I had never done anything like this in my entire life. I'm the guy who plans everything, meticulously, down to the last detail. I create spreadsheets for vacations. I map out my work schedules a month in advance. I even have a loose itinerary for lazy Sundays. Yet here I was, upending my whole existence with no plan, no destination, and no safety net, propelled forward by a raw, primal need to simply get away. I grabbed my phone, and ignoring the screen that I knew would soon be lighting up with her name, I opened a browser and Googled quiet places to stay near Crestwood. I couldn't bear the thought of a regular hotel. The sterile hallways and anonymous rooms felt too cold, too close to the life I was fleeing. I needed somewhere I could disappear, a place where I could breathe without feeling the phantom weight of her presence in the next room. That's when I found it. Whispering Pines Lodge, a small, rustic resort about 2 hours outside the city. The pictures showed cozy individual cabins, a dense forest, and a serene-looking lake. It wasn't fancy or modern, but it looked quiet. It looked safe. They had last-minute availability. Perfect. I called and booked a cabin for a full week, reading my credit card number out loud in a monotone voice. The price was steep, but I didn't care. It felt like a small price to pay for my own sanity. Before walking out the door for the last time, I stopped at my desk. In a neat blue folder were all the contracts for the wedding: the caterer, the photographer, the DJ, and the biggest one, the venue. A wave of nausea hit me as I looked at the signed papers, a testament to a future that had been a lie. I had no intention of paying for a wedding that was never going to happen. I pulled out the venue contract and dialed the number as I walked out of the apartment, not even bothering to look back. "Hi, this is Liam," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "I need to cancel a reservation for a wedding." There was a pause on the other end, then a polite, professional voice. "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, sir. May I ask the reason for the cancellation?" I almost laughed. How could I possibly explain? "Just a change of plans," I said, the understatement of the century. "Life happens, you know." She launched into a polite but firm explanation of their cancellation policy, about how they would have to keep 20% of the deposit. I cut her off. "That's fine. I don't care. Just cancel it." With that single liberating act, I got into my car and started driving. The drive to the resort felt completely surreal. It was like I was watching a movie of my own life. My hands on the wheel, my foot on the gas, but my mind was a million miles away. I just followed the GPS voice while my brain replayed the contents of that flash drive, each scene more damning than the last. Was this just the bachelorette party, or had Ava been hiding this reckless side of herself for our entire relationship? The question hammered at me, over and over again. I stopped at a desolate gas station halfway there to grab some bottled water and a few bags of chips, anything to keep my hands busy. While I was paying, my phone, which I'd tossed onto the passenger seat, began to buzz incessantly, a relentless, frantic vibration. I didn't have to look. I knew it was her. Text after text, call after call. She must have gotten home from work, seen the empty space in the closet, and my duffel bag gone. I couldn't bring myself to look at the messages. I wasn't ready for the inevitable excuses, the fake tears, or the classic "it wasn't what it looked like" speech. I just reached over, picked up the phone, and switched it to silent, plunging it back into darkness. Then I kept driving. Whispering Pines Lodge was exactly what I needed. The cabin was small but perfect. It had a huge, king-sized bed that looked ridiculously empty, a little kitchenette, a stone fireplace, and a wooden deck that overlooked the calm, gray water of the lake. It felt like a different universe from the apartment I had just abandoned. I dumped my bag in a corner, walked over to the edge of the bed, and sat down. For the first time since I'd pressed play on that video, I let out a long, shaky breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. The full weight of what I had done, of what had happened to me, finally crashed down. This wasn't just a breakup. I had left my fiancé. I had walked away from my home. I had detonated the entire life I thought I was building. I spent the next hour unpacking, the simple, mundane task a welcome distraction, but it felt bizarre to see my clothes in this unfamiliar closet, my toothbrush on this unfamiliar sink. Every creak of the floorboards made me jump, my body still half expecting Ava to call out from the other room, asking me what I wanted for dinner. When I finally sat down on the deck with a makeshift sandwich, I decided to look at my phone. The screen lit up with a barrage of notifications. Over 20 missed calls from Ava, a dozen more from Zoe, and a flood of texts from Ava that told a story of mounting panic. The first few were casual. "Hey babe, where are you? Give me a call when you get this." Then, confused. "Okay, this isn't funny, Liam. Why is your bag gone? Where did you go?" Then the panic set in. "Liam, you're scaring me. Are you okay? Why are your clothes gone? What is going on? Please, please call me." And finally, desperation. "Please, I don't understand what's happening. Just talk to me. I love you. Please." I felt nothing. I didn't respond. Instead, I scrolled through my contacts and called my parents. My mom and dad are good people, the kind of quiet, sturdy folks who don't panic unless the house is literally on fire. When my mom answered, I kept my explanation brief and vague. "The wedding's off," I said, my voice cracking slightly for the first time. "I left Ava." There was a short silence, and then my mom's calm voice came through the line. "Okay, sweetie, are you safe? Do you want to tell us what happened?" She wasn't the person I thought she was," I managed to say. My dad's voice joined in, firm and unwavering. "Good for you, son. Better to find out now than a few years down the line." They didn't press for details, a small mercy for which I was incredibly grateful. I told them I was okay, staying at a cabin for a little while to clear my head. They told me they loved me and would support me no matter what. After I hung up, I felt a fraction of the tension leave my shoulders. That first night in the cabin was strange and silent, but my resolve hardened. I wasn't going back. Not for her apologies, not for her tears, not for anything. This was the end. As the initial shock began to recede, it was replaced by a cold, hard anger. And it wasn't just directed at Ava. One name, one person kept bothering me, buzzing at the edge of my thoughts like a persistent fly. Zoe. She wasn't some innocent bystander who just happened to be there. Oh no, she was the architect of this entire disaster. That video wasn't just a drunken recording. It felt calculated. It was a trophy, a highlight reel of their conquest, and the damn note she'd left on the package confirmed it. You deserved every second of it. It was practically a signed confession. Thinking back, Zoe had always rubbed me the wrong way. From the moment I met her, she was a whirlwind of noise and performance. She was perpetually armed with a sarcastic joke, always had to be the loudest person in the room, and seemed to suck all the oxygen out of any space she entered. Ava saw her as hilarious and spirited, the life of the party. I just saw her as obnoxious and deeply insecure. For 6 years, I had learned to tolerate her because she was so important to Ava, but I never, ever trusted her. Looking back now, the red flags were practically a parade. Zoe was constantly trying to pull Ava away for a girls' night, even when we already had plans. There were countless nights Ava would stumble home at 2 a.m, reeking of alcohol, with Zoe cackling on the phone in the background, shouting, "Sorry for stealing your girl, Liam." I used to just laugh it off, chalking it up to Zoe being Zoe. It didn't feel so funny anymore. Lying there in the silence of the cabin, I made a decision. I had to confront her. Not Ava, not yet. I needed answers from the person who had gleefully lit a match and handed it to my fiancé. I didn't want to call her from my own number, so I downloaded a burner app. I wanted to control the conversation, to set the stage. I sent her a message that was intentionally vague, but designed to be bait. "Hey, it's Liam. We need to talk about Ava. Meet me at the Daily Grind on 7th tomorrow at noon." She responded in less than 5 minutes, the panic practically vibrating through the screen. "WTF? Liam? Are you okay? Is Ava okay? What is this about?" I didn't reply. I just let her stew in it. The next day, I drove the 2 hours back to Crestwood, the anger a steady, hot coal in my gut. I parked a few blocks away from the coffee shop and waited, watching. Sure enough, right at noon, Zoe strutted in. She looked exactly as I expected, impossibly smug. She was wearing a ridiculously bright pink blazer, sunglasses that she kept on indoors, and heels that looked like a form of cruel and unusual punishment. It was classic Zoe, an outfit designed to scream, "Look at me." I gave her a few minutes to settle in before I walked inside and sat down directly across from her. Her eyes widened in surprise when she saw me, but she quickly recovered, plastering on a wide, fake smile. "Liam, you scared the hell out of me with that text. What's going on? Is everything okay?" I didn't have the time or the patience for pleasantries. Cut the crap, Zoe, I said, my voice low and even. I know about the bachelorette party. Her smile didn't just fade, it froze solid on her face. Her composure cracked for just a second. What do you mean? I leaned forward, resting my arms on the table between us. I mean the flash drive, the videos, the special little gift package you left on our doorstep. I mean, I know everything. She stared at me, her mind clearly racing. Then she let out a short, nervous laugh. Oh, come on, Liam. It was just bachelorette party stuff. You're not seriously going to get upset about that, are you? My own laugh was harsh and humorless. Upset? That's an understatement. What kind of best friend actively encourages someone to cheat on their fiancé and then sends them a highlight reel of the entire thing? Her face flushed a deep, blotchy red. It wasn't like that, she said, her voice suddenly defensive. It was just a fun night. A little wild, maybe. No harm, no foul. No harm? I repeated, my voice dangerously quiet. I slowly pulled my phone out of my pocket, unlocked it, and opened the photo gallery. I'd taken screenshots of her texts to Ava from the video, her narration loud and clear. Bride of the year, you owned that stage, girl. I slid the phone across the table. Her eyes flickered down to the screen. Don't you dare feel guilty. It's your last chance to be free. Her eyes widened and she physically recoiled, trying to push the phone back toward me as if it were contaminated. Liam, you are taking this way, way too seriously. It's just tradition, you know. Every bride deserves one wild night before she settles down. Tradition. The word hung in the air between us, absolutely toxic. My voice started to rise, losing its controlled edge. Is that what you call it? Tradition? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you were the director, producer, and #1 fan of the whole disgusting show. It looks like you were egging her on the entire time. Zoe sighed, a long, theatrical sound of pure exasperation, and crossed her arms over her chest. She leaned back in her chair, attempting to look bored and unaffected. Look, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. I didn't force her to do anything, okay? She's a grown woman. She made her own choices. And you were right there, cheering her on with a megaphone, I shot back, my voice gaining volume. You're supposed to be her best friend. You were supposed to have her back. Instead, you helped her light a match to everything we built together. She had the audacity to roll her eyes. Oh, please, don't be so dramatic, Liam. It's not like she doesn't love you. It was just a one-night thing. It's not a big deal. You guys can get past this. That was it. That was the line. An uncontrollable surge of white-hot fury washed over me. I slammed my open palm down on the table, the sharp crack echoing through the quiet coffee shop. Zoe jumped in her seat, and a few customers at nearby tables turned to stare. I didn't care. Move past this? I snarled, leaning so far forward my face was inches from hers. You think I can just forget that she slept with 3 different men? You think I can just erase that video from my head because you call it a one-night thing? Are you serious? You are unbelievable. Zoe's face paled as she glanced nervously at the other patrons. Her smug bravado had completely evaporated, replaced by genuine fear. Okay, fine, she whispered, her voice cracking. I'm sorry if it got out of hand, but honestly, Liam, this is between you and Ava. Don't drag me into it. I pushed my chair back and stood up, looking down at her. You were in it from the second you sent that package, Zoe, I said, my voice now a cold, menacing calm. You're already in it, and believe me, everyone is going to know exactly what kind of friend you really are. Her eyes widened in panic. What does that mean? You'll find out soon enough, I said, grabbing my phone off the table and walking out without another word, leaving her sitting alone in the wreckage. The 2-hour drive back to Whispering Pines Lodge was different this time. The raw emotion had burned away, leaving a strange clarity in its wake. As much as I despised Zoe, as much as I wanted to pin this entire catastrophe on her, a single sentence she'd said kept replaying in my mind. She's a grown woman. She made her own choices. And as much as I hated to admit it, she was right about that one thing. Zoe may have encouraged her, but Ava was the one who walked through every door. Ava was the one who kissed those men. Ava was the one who threw our future away for a few hours of reckless thrills. That twisted my stomach into a new kind of knot. I had always seen Ava as this fun, carefree spirit, but now I saw that what I had interpreted as a love for life was actually just a deep-seated recklessness. Zoe might have been the match, but Ava was the one holding the can of gasoline. She was the one who lit the fire. When I got back to the quiet solitude of my cabin, I knew my next step. I wasn't ready to talk to Ava, but I couldn't let Zoe and her friends control the narrative. I opened my laptop, drafted a new email, and attached the video files and the screenshots of Zoe's incriminating texts. I sent it to a small, carefully selected group of our mutual friends, the ones I knew were decent people, the ones I trusted to understand. I didn't add much commentary, just a simple line. I thought you should see the real reason the wedding is off. I hit send, and a grim sense of finality washed over me. The truth was out there now, a digital wildfire that couldn't be contained. After that, my next move became crystal clear. I had to talk to Ava's parents. To say Eleanor and Marcus were old school would be an understatement. They had this traditional, conservative vibe that always made me feel like I was one wrong move away from being permanently judged. When Ava and I first moved in together, her mother, Eleanor, treated it like we were running some kind of back alley scandal. She never said it outright, but her constant, passive-aggressive comments, in my day, it just wasn't proper for a young couple to live together before marriage, made her feelings perfectly clear. Her dad, Marcus, was even quieter, but just as disapproving, usually just grunting and saying things like, "We did things differently." It wasn't until I put a ring on Ava's finger that their attitude toward me thawed. Suddenly, I had passed some invisible, unspoken test. Eleanor was excitedly planning bridal showers, and Marcus was talking about helping us with a down payment on a house. It was sickeningly transparent. My worth was directly tied to my commitment to their daughter. Well, Ava had betrayed that commitment. She had shattered her own perfect and proper image, and it was time for her parents, who were quite wealthy and had supported her entire life, to see the truth. They needed to face the music right alongside her. My phone had continued to buzz intermittently with pleading texts from Ava, but now a new number appeared. It was Eleanor. "Liam, what is going on? Ava is an absolute wreck. Please call me. We're all very worried about you." I stared at the message. This was my opening. I wasn't going to do this over the phone. If anyone was going to have to deal with the fallout from Ava's actions, it wasn't going to be me anymore. Let her parents handle it. They always acted like they knew what was best anyway. For the third time in as many days, I got in my car and drove back toward the city, my destination this time being the pristine, manicured lawn of Eleanor and Marcus's suburban home. I didn't tell Ava I was going. I didn't owe her that courtesy. Let her find out when the screaming started. When I pulled up to the house, it looked just as I always remembered. Perfect. The lawn was a flawless green carpet, the flower beds were meticulously arranged, and there wasn't a single thing out of place. It was a house that projected an image of perfect, orderly success. I walked up the stone pathway and rang the bell, my heart a steady, cold drum in my chest. Eleanor opened the door, and her face, initially tight with worry, flooded with relief. "Oh, Liam, thank God you're here," she breathed, her hand flying to her chest. "What on earth is going on? Ava has been so worried about you since yesterday. She's a complete mess." Marcus was sitting in his usual armchair in the living room, a fortress of leather and wood, pretending to flip through a newspaper. He looked up as he heard my voice. "Liam," he said with a curt nod, "glad you're here. Maybe you can finally tell us what's going on with you two." I stepped inside, the air smelling faintly of lemon polish and old money. I didn't take off my jacket. I walked over and sat on their pristine white couch, the kind of furniture that looks like it's never actually been used. "I came to tell you the truth," I said, my voice leaving no room for argument. Eleanor's expression faltered, shifting from relief to confusion. She perched nervously on the edge of the matching armchair across from me, her hands twisting in her lap. Marcus lowered his newspaper, his brow furrowed with impatience. I didn't waste any more time. I pulled out my phone, navigated to the folder of evidence I'd created, and held it up. "Ava has been lying to you," I said, looking directly at Eleanor. "And to me. The wedding is off. It's off because of what she did at her bachelorette party." Eleanor gasped, a sharp, strangled sound. "What are you talking about? What could she possibly have done that would be so terrible?" Her voice was full of disbelief, as if the very idea of her daughter doing something wrong was a logical impossibility. "Watch this," I said, and handed her my phone. She hesitated, her eyes darting from the screen to my face and back again. Then she pressed play. I watched her as she watched the video. I saw her perfect composure crumble in real time. Her face went from confused to horrified, her skin turning pale. The garish lights and shouting from the strip club on the video felt alien in this quiet, sterile room. "Oh my God," she whispered, her voice trembling. "This can't be real. Liam, please tell me this isn't real." Marcus stood up, his face already flushing with anger. "What's going on? Let me see that." Eleanor handed him the phone with a shaking hand, tears now silently streaming down her face. As Marcus watched, his jaw clenched so tightly I could see the muscles bulge. His hands gripped the edges of the phone as if he wanted to crush it into dust. His face went from red to a deep, dangerous purple. "This is what she did," I said, my voice firm and unwavering. "She didn't just betray me, Eleanor. She made a public spectacle of it, and her supposed best friend, Zoe, encouraged her every step of the way." Eleanor buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs. "I can't believe this. I raised her better than this. I can't believe she would do this." Marcus began to pace the expensive rug, his fists clenched at his sides. "That damn girl," he muttered, his voice a low growl. "What in the hell was she thinking?" "She wasn't thinking," I said flatly. "And now she's blowing up my phone, trying to get me to forgive her. But I'm done. I'm not cleaning up this mess. I just thought you both deserved to know the truth." Eleanor looked up at me, her eyes red and pleading. "Liam, please, can't you just talk to her? Maybe it was a mistake. She was probably drunk. Maybe she was pressured into it." "She wasn't pressured," I said, cutting her off sharply. "She made her own choices, and I am not going to spend the rest of my life wondering if she's going to make them again every time she goes out with her friends." Marcus stopped pacing and pointed an accusatory finger at his wife. "This is what happens. This is what happens when she listens to that damn Zoe instead of her own family. I told you that girl was trouble from day one." Eleanor nodded weakly, wiping at her tears. "We should have said something. We should have stopped her from moving in with you in the first place. Maybe none of this would have happened." I let out a short, bitter laugh at the sheer, stunning irony of her statement. "Are you serious? You think me moving in with her was the problem? For years, you've both been so completely obsessed with what's proper that you never once stopped to see the real issue. Your daughter is reckless. She has been for a long time, and now the bill has come due." Marcus stared at me, then sank back into his chair, shaking his head in stunned silence. He looked defeated. I stood up. "Look, I'm sorry to be the one to drop this on you, but it's your problem now. She'll probably come crying to you for help, and you can decide how you want to handle it. I've already made my decision." As I walked toward the door, Eleanor rushed over and grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "Liam, please," she begged, her voice a desperate whisper. "Don't tell anyone else about this. Think of the shame, the embarrassment for our family." I gently but firmly pulled my arm from her grasp. "That's not my concern anymore, Eleanor. You'll have to deal with that yourselves." Driving back to the resort, I felt a strange and profound sense of closure. For 6 years, they had looked down on me, treating me like I wasn't quite good enough for their perfect daughter. Now they knew the truth. Their precious daughter had ruined everything all on her own. The power dynamic had irrevocably shifted. Later that evening, a voicemail from Eleanor popped up on my phone. I let it play, listening to her defeated, broken voice. "Liam, it's Eleanor. I don't even know what to say. Marcus and I are just devastated. We confronted Ava, and she's completely fallen apart. She says she doesn't know how to fix this, but honestly, neither do we. I just want you to know that we're so sorry. If you ever want to talk, we're here." I listened to the message once, then my thumb hovered over the screen. I pressed delete. Ava could deal with her parents now. I was done. Let them pick up the pieces of the perfect life they had tried to build. I wasn't her safety net anymore. It didn't take long for the foundations of their perfect world to start cracking. After dropping the truth bomb on Eleanor and Marcus, I decided it was time to widen the circle. Some might call it vindictive, and maybe a small part of it was, but mostly it was about survival. It was about ensuring that Ava and her crew couldn't just sweep this under the rug and paint me as the bad guy who overreacted and walked out. I refused to let them control the story. The truth, in all its ugly detail, needed to come out. The first person I targeted was Sophie. She wasn't a chaos agent like Zoe, but she was there that night. She was one of the friends in the video, laughing and cheering Ava on. She had watched the whole thing unfold and done nothing. In my book, that made her complicit, and she wasn't getting a free pass. I sent her a short, sharp text using the same burner up. "Sophie, it's Liam. I know what happened at the bachelorette party. I have the videos and the messages. Don't play dumb. We need to talk." She called me within minutes. Her voice was shaky and thin, caught completely off guard. "Liam, what the hell is this? Where did you get videos?" "Does it matter where I got them, Sophie?" I asked, my tone flat and cold. "You were there. You saw everything. You tell me what happened." She stammered for a few seconds, a flurry of half-formed denials and panicked noises, before she finally cracked. "Look, I didn't know it was going to be that bad, okay? I thought it was just some dancing and flirting. I didn't know she was going to disappear with 3 random guys into a hotel room." I cut in, my voice laced with ice. "You didn't know she was going to cheat on me while you all watched? Is that what you didn't know?" Sophie went quiet for a moment. I could hear her sharp intake of breath. When she finally spoke, her voice was a resigned sigh. "Look, Liam, I'm so sorry. I really am. I should have said something. I know I should have. But it's not like I could have stopped her. She was on a mission." She paused and then delivered a line that felt like a fresh punch to the gut. She kept talking about how boring marrying you was going to be. She said she just wanted one last fun night before it was over. The words hit me harder than the video had. Boring. After 6 years of building a life, that's what I was to her? The safe, steady, boring option. "And Zoe was right there, I assume?" I asked, my voice dangerously low. "Zoe was hyping her up the whole time," Sophie confirmed quickly, eager to shift the blame, telling her she deserved it, that she was a legend. Ava was drunk, and, well, she was just going along with it. "Going along with it?" I snapped, the cold fury returning. "That's your defense, Sophie? She wasn't a passenger. She was driving the car. And you, her supposed friend, you just stood on the sidewalk and waved as she drove it right off a cliff. A real friend would have taken the keys." She didn't have much to say after that. By the end of the brief, brutal call, she was apologizing profusely and swore she would talk to Ava. I didn't believe her for a second. I wasn't holding my breath. The next domino to fall was Zoe, and I barely had to lift a finger. By now, Eleanor and Marcus were in full-blown 5-alarm damage control mode. They must have absolutely shredded Ava after I left their house, because the next day, my phone lit up with a text from Zoe herself. Her tone was no longer nervous or scared. It was furious. "Liam, what the hell are you telling people? Ava is a complete mess, and now everyone is acting weird around me. You need to stop this right now." I couldn't help but let out a short, sharp laugh as I read it. A tiny smirk played on my lips. She was finally feeling the heat. The ringleader was getting burned. I didn't even bother to respond. I just let her squirm in the mess she had so gleefully created. The best part, however, came when Sophie, in a desperate act of self-preservation, spilled the entire story to the rest of their friend group. She might have been complicit in Ava's betrayal, but she clearly had no intention of going down with the ship. She started meticulously distancing herself from both Ava and Zoe, telling anyone who would listen that she had no idea the full extent of what happened and that she never would have supported it if she had. It was a cowardly move, but an effective one. By the end of the week, the story was everywhere. Ava had gone from being the fun, popular bride-to-be to the pariah of her own social circle. Friends were ignoring her calls. Plans were being canceled. She was being quietly ostracized. In the midst of it all, one message caught me by surprise. It was from Olivia, a mutual friend who was part of the larger group, but someone I didn't know all that well. Her text was simple and direct. "Hey, Liam, I just heard what happened, and I wanted to say I'm so incredibly sorry for everything you're going through. I had no idea Ava was capable of something like that. It's disgusting. If you need anything at all, please let me know." It was a small gesture, but it meant the world. It was a quiet confirmation that I wasn't crazy, that my reaction wasn't an overreaction. Meanwhile, Ava was still trying to get through to me. The frantic flood of texts had slowed to a desperate trickle. "Liam, I know you're mad, but we have to talk about this. Please." A day later, "I'll do anything to fix this. Just tell me what to do. Please don't give up on us." It was almost pathetic to read. I could see right through it. She wasn't apologizing because she felt remorse for hurting me. She was apologizing because her life was imploding. Her friends were abandoning her, her parents were furious, and the perfect image she had built was crumbling to dust. She wasn't sorry for what she did, she was sorry she got caught. The final, inevitable implosion between Ava and Zoe happened a few days later. Their toxic friendship, built on a foundation of drama and mutual enabling, finally collapsed under the weight of the consequences. It started as a quiet disagreement over the phone, but quickly escalated into a full-blown screaming match. Olivia, who heard the story from another friend who'd unfortunately been in the room, gave me the play-by-play. Fed up with being the primary scapegoat for Ava's actions, Zoe had finally snapped. "Don't you dare act like I made you do anything," she had screamed at Ava. "You were all in from the beginning. You loved the attention. Stop playing the victim." Olivia's text to me was short and to the point. "Zoe and Ava aren't speaking anymore. Zoe is telling everyone Ava used her as a scapegoat. It's a total mess." I felt a grim sense of satisfaction reading that. For years, Zoe had acted like she was untouchable, a master manipulator who could start fires and never get burned. Now she was finally getting a taste of her own medicine, turning on her closest ally to save her own skin. The last I heard directly from her family was a text from Eleanor, letting me know that Ava was completely falling apart, struggling to get her life together. At first, I assumed it was just the expected emotional fallout. Days spent crying, begging her friends for forgiveness, the usual dramatics. But as the days bled into a week, I started hearing whispers from mutual acquaintances about how truly bad things had gotten for her. Apparently, after Eleanor and Marcus confronted her, Ava didn't show remorse. She showed rage. She blamed me. She screamed at them that I had overreacted, that I was being cruel, and that it wasn't fair for me to ruin her entire life over one single mistake. That, for her image-obsessed parents, was the final straw. Seeing their daughter refuse to take any responsibility for the shame she had brought upon their family was more than they could bear. They kicked her out. It wasn't just an empty threat. They literally packed her designer clothes and expensive shoes into her own suitcases, left them sitting on their perfect, pristine porch, and told her not to come back until she learned what accountability meant. Knowing Eleanor, I'm sure a parting shot like, "You're an embarrassment to this family," was included. Her first call, naturally, was to Zoe, but after their blowout fight, Zoe wasn't exactly eager to let her former best friend crash on her couch. She made it brutally clear that she wanted no part of the mess anymore, and that letting Ava stay with her would only drag her further down. Olivia told me that Ava had then desperately reached out to Sophie and a few other friends, but the doors were closed there too. Sophie ignored her calls entirely. The others, now fully aware of the truth and not wanting to be caught in the crossfire, all had excuses. By the end of the week, Ava was homeless, reduced to couch surfing with anyone who would take her for a night or two. The financial fallout was even more swift and brutal. Ava had a cushy office job, a position her father had pulled significant strings to get for her. She had been coasting on that connection for years, but after they kicked her out, Marcus made it clear that his protection was officially revoked. From what I heard, Ava's manager had never been thrilled with her work ethic to begin with. She'd already been warned about her chronic lateness and for slacking on major projects. Once the whispers about her personal drama started to circulate through the office, the company decided she was more trouble than she was worth. She was let go, with the official reason being corporate downsizing. I'll admit, when Olivia told me about Ava losing her job, a wave of vindication washed over me. Not because I wanted her to suffer, but because it was the ultimate proof that her actions had consequences. For her entire life, she had coasted, relying on her looks, her charm, and her parents' money to clean up her messes. Now, for the first time, she had no safety net. I heard through the grapevine that she made one last, desperate attempt to go back to her parents. She showed up at their house, sobbing, begging them to let her come home, telling them she had nowhere else to go. They didn't cave. By this point, Ava was completely out of options. She had no job, no home, and no friends willing to help her. The texts she sent me became even more desperate. "Liam, please talk to me. I have no one else. I'm sorry for everything. I lost my job, my home, everything. I know I messed up. Please give me another chance. I'll do anything." I read them, and I deleted them. I was not going to be her last resort. A week later, our mutual friend Noah gave me a final update. Ava had called him, crying, hoping he'd let her stay with him for a while. Noah, being the no-nonsense guy he is, shut her down immediately. "She's in a bad way, man," he told me over the phone, crying, saying she didn't know what to do. But I told her straight up, "Ava, this is not my problem to solve." He wasn't being heartless, he just refused to be manipulated. Eventually, Olivia told me that Ava had used the last of her savings to rent a single, run-down room in a shared apartment on the complete other side of town. She'd picked up a part-time job as a barista at a coffee shop, but it wasn't nearly enough to cover her expenses. "She's barely hanging on," Olivia had said, her voice tinged with a strange mix of pity and disbelief. "I don't think she's ever been this low." The part that truly surprised me was how quickly her entire world had turned on her. For years, Ava had been the radiant center of her friend group. But the moment she was the one in real trouble, the one who needed something, no one wanted to help. She had burned every bridge she'd ever crossed. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a sliver of dark satisfaction watching her life unravel. It wasn't because I wanted her to suffer, not really. It was because it proved a fundamental point that she had never been forced to learn. Actions have consequences. You can't tear through life leaving wreckage in your wake and expect other people to always be there to pick up the pieces. As for me, I was moving on. I extended my stay at the cabin, taking long walks by the lake and letting the quiet heal the parts of me that she had broken. Every day felt like another step away from the drama, another step closer to myself. The woman I thought I was going to marry was gone, and the person she had become was a stranger, and I was finally okay with that. Her life was in ruins, but mine was just beginning. This has been an intense and heartbreaking journey, and it leaves us with a powerful lesson that goes far beyond a simple story of infidelity. The core message here is about the devastating ripple effect of broken trust and the absolute necessity of accountability. Ava's perfect life wasn't shattered just because of one reckless night. It was dismantled because of her profound failure to take responsibility for her choices. When confronted, she blamed her partner, dismissed the betrayal, and painted herself as the victim. This story is a stark reminder that our actions have consequences, but it's our response to those actions, our willingness to show remorse and own our mistakes, that truly defines our character. Liam's decision to walk away wasn't just about the cheating. It was about protecting his own self-respect from someone who refused to acknowledge the pain she had caused. He chose to remove himself from a toxic cycle, proving that sometimes the strongest move is to not engage in the drama, but to simply leave it behind to collapse under its own weight. If this story resonated with you and you appreciate narratives that explore the deep complexities of human relationships, please take a moment to show your support. Hitting that like button helps this story reach more people, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and turn on all notifications. Your support is what allows us to continue finding and sharing these compelling journeys. We have an incredible community watching from all around the globe. We'd love to know where you are tuning in from today. Please drop a comment below and let us know which region or country you're watching from.